Hey guys, AJ here, back with another one for you. So today is Tuesday, October 18th, and the Stacey Abrams Brian Kemp a debate happened yesterday. It's been about 24 hours, so I think I'm gonna do a reaction to this. I'm not gonna do it all in one video because this is pretty long, and I don't want this video to take a long time. Um, I want to say props to the moderators because this debate actually went pretty well. As far as the structure and everything, and I said I don't live in Georgia, so I don't really have like a super educated opinion on Georgia politics. But I think all of my subscribers know that I really don't like Stacey Abrams, and while I'm not the biggest Brian Kemp fan, I don't think Stacey Abrams is a solution. I don't think that she has black male interests at heart because my channel is fundamentally black male perspective channel, and Stacey Abrams is not the solution to anything, to any of the problems that I see anyone that looks like me having. So let's jump into this. I think that there's a pause or something, like this is PBS and their live feed goes dark for a second, so I'll skip past that, but I'll probably do this in like 10-minute increments or whatever. And I also want to say props to the libertarian dude in the middle because he actually made this debate really fun to watch. I don't agree with a lot of his stances. I agree with some libertarian stuff. I think most people can find some common ground with libertarians in some ways because their platform is kind of like, oh, let's be free, you know. But in practice, a lot of it just really, I don't think it'll work. So, but he does make the situation lively, and I also like the fact that he says, look, we all know that everyone's here to see these two square off, but I'm going to make my voice heard, damn it. And he just kind of goes off. So it's pretty cool. Let's get into it.
Question of Stacey Abrams.
Thank you, Donna. Ms. Abrams, public opinion polls in our state show support for the right to abortion, Medicaid expansion, and banning assault weapons. You are on the side of public opinion in each of these issues, yet you are behind in almost every poll. Why?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the communities of Georgia. The reason people are on my side are because I'm on the right side of history and on the right side of the issues. But we also know that polls are a snapshot. The question is, who are they taking a picture of? When I'm going across this state, the people...
And of course, oh, they must not be polling the right people. That's why the polls are wrong. But I wonder if the polls were in her favor and they asked her the same question, what her answer would be. Makes you think, doesn't it?
People I'm talking to are excited about this election, but they also know that they're often left out of the conversation. Students who have found themselves struggling to finish college because they don't have access to financial aid. Families that are struggling to decide between food on their table and healthcare costs. Families facing rising prices. And everyone I've met is afraid of the gun violence and the rising violence in the state. I do not believe that I'm behind. I believe that I'm making the case for Georgia.
Of course you don't believe that you're behind, despite what the polls say. Of course you don't.
Georgia, the case for electing me as the next governor, because the current failures we have seen in this state are not only damning, they are disqualifying. And over the next few years, we have an opportunity to change the trajectory of the state, and I look forward to leading our state forward.
Thank you very much. Greg Bluestein, it's your turn to ask a question of Brian Kemp.
Thank you, Donna. Governor, in recent weeks, 2 recordings have surfaced in which you left the door open, or you appeared to leave the door open, to questions about whether you'd push to ban emergency contraceptives and whether you'd back a statewide ban on the destruction of embryos. Can you tell us right now whether you'd push for these measures or any other additional restrictions on abortion now that the 2019 law is in effect?
No, I would not. I mean, look, we were at many campaign events. People come up, secret recordings, couldn't completely understand the conversation that's going on, but no, that's not.
See, I think that's Brian Kemp there. He tried to give, well, people kind of said that I think that they said what I said, but I didn't really say what I said that I said. And of course, that's kind of a slimy politician wiggle out answer, you know? So it is what it is. He's a politician. Stacey Abrams is a politician too, and they all say slimy BS, which is why I say that you can't really be a good person in politics. You know, it's ultimately, I don't like any politicians mostly. So that's what I call a political answer.
Not my desire to do that. Georgians should know that my desire is to.
Yeah, and there's the little cutoff there. So let's skip ahead a little bit.
Shane Hazel.
Mr. Hazel, Georgia seems to be struggling right now in dealing with how to legally take on the issue of cannabis in the state. What do you think needs to be done here? How should Georgia address the issues surrounding marijuana?
I guess a perfect question for a libertarian. We believe that cannabis is a plant that grows from earth naturally, and the hubris that the federal government has shown in making a Schedule I drug while also holding patents on it is one of those things where we find it somewhat laughable. And it is. It is a right of people. It is medicine. It is something that we can add to our industry here in Georgia and really displace a lot of what comes in from outside of Georgia.
Now that I agree with. I don't smoke pot personally. It gives me really bad migraines. I don't know why. But I have a lot of friends who do at all levels. I mean, I'm from Washington State. It's legal there. So I agree with him here. Like I said, he makes good points, throughout the whole debate. So props to him.
This is a huge win for Georgia. We have a great agricultural sector. We can grow 2 bumper crops of cannabis every year. The idea that it is still illegal and that Brian Kemp has talked about this and tweeted about it as it is a good thing when we make cannabis bust and cannabis bust only is a real sign that the government in Georgia is using it for the prison industrial complex, for the law enforcement complex to go after communities that would like to see freedom in this area. So it's a right. That's how we see it as libertarians.
Right. Thank you very much.
Props to him. I agree.
You have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I would just like to make sure people at home know that I have been doing exactly what I told them I would do when I was campaigning for governor, and now that I am your governor. We have been going after street gangs and drug cartels. So the things that we're tweeting out there is when our great men and women in law enforcement are making drug busts, not from recreational users
It's a
and
plant.
other things. But that's what my focus is on.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Greg, please ask a
It's one thing throughout this debate that Kemp does is he does kind of pivot to crime and law enforcement a lot, and that's kind of like, I don't want to call it a scare tactic, but it is kind of like throwing something more serious out there to kind of redirect or just redirect the conversation or the narrative to somewhere that's kind of making people a bit more fearful. So let's get back into it.
A question of Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, Ms. Abrams, in 2018, you didn't concede defeat to Governor Kemp, and you talked to systemic problems with the state's election system. This election, do you commit to accept the outcome of the vote, regardless of what it shows? And do you stand by your use of words like rigged 4 years ago to describe the state's election system?
In 2018, I began my speech on
Damn, that's a really good question. Let's see what she does.
November 16th, acknowledging that Governor Kemp had won the election. I then proceeded to lay out in grave detail the challenges faced by voters under his leadership as Secretary of State, including the 10+2 who were arrested in Quitman, Georgia, because they had the temerity to use absentee ballots. I told the story of students who were denied access to the right to vote, even though they had duly registered. 80,000 complaints had come in by that day, and it took 4 years of federal investigation in a lawsuit that was the longest-running voting rights lawsuit in the state's in recent history that proved us right. Now, we didn't win every single claim, but we forced massive changes to the election laws. And unfortunately, Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger have decided to restore their greatest hits. Just today, a homeless woman was denied the right to vote in Forsyth County because she did not receive a provisional ballot because she had been challenged. As governor, I intend to stand up for the right to vote. I will always acknowledge the outcome of elections, but I will never deny access to every voter, because that is the responsibility of every American to defend the right to vote.
Okay, I'm going to stop right here. So, this is one thing that irks me about this voter suppression conversation. As a black person, I've never really thought that it's the fight to vote, or blacks haven't really had the right to vote for, well, all blacks, how about that, for very long. I think black women couldn't really vote until, the 60s odd, around there. So I'm not saying that it's fair that there might be some systems in place. Let's give Stacey Abrams, let's just assume that what she's saying is true. Yeah, there might be some systems put in place that makes it harder to vote. If you want to really vote and make your voice heard, you're going to do whatever it takes to vote. Whether that's go get an ID or do whatever that it takes. Despite what people say, blacks it's easier for blacks to vote than almost any other time in U.S. history. We have more access to jobs, wealth, transportation, public or taking an Uber. There's so many ways now. There isn't, Ku Klux Klansmen outside trying to keep you from going, like in the very first black vote, where I think it was some black men in a church voted in the late 1800s for the first time. That was the very first black vote, and there was, Klansmen trying to ride there and take them out or whatever. That's not happening now. We're in 2022. If you want to vote, you get out there and you vote. And if it's hard, so what? You're supposed to go out there and vote. And if our history is that voting is hard, I don't mean to sound bad, but why would you expect it not to be? Anything that's worth doing has some measure of difficulty to it. So I don't buy into it, Let's get back into it.
Thank you. Brian Kemp, rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Well, I would just say that Miss Abrams is going to do a lot of attacking of my record tonight because she doesn't want to talk about her own record. In 2018, in the governor's race, we had the largest African-American turnout in the country.
And that is true.
She said that Senate Bill 202, our recent Elections Integrity Act, what we passed 2 years ago, would be suppressive in Jim Crow 2.0. Just this past May in our primaries, we again had record turnout in the Republican primary and the Democratic primary. In Georgia, it's easy to vote and hard to cheat.
And I also want to say, before the libertarian dude goes into his spiel, that people who want to vote, I think that most people who don't vote because they don't give a damn. Honestly, black, Hispanic, poor, rich, whatever. A lot of people don't vote because they don't care about politics. So how can you just assume that they're being kept from voting when if anyone listening to this, poll your friends and family and ask them if they voted in their state or local elections? I guarantee a large percentage of them will say no. They won't even know who's running for sheriff or running for judge or running for state senate or anything. They won't care. So to just assume that the reason why people aren't voting is because there's some plot is crazy. Or if there is some plot that it's working to the point where, it's keeping just the people that are going to vote for me from voting is absolutely insane, and it's hubris. Let's get back into it.
Add just a second here. As the libertarian,
30 seconds for you.
Although you will push for people to have access to going to the polls and voting, you're not pushing ballot access. This is a huge oppression for people like the third parties, the people that want to get their people on the ballot. We have, I think, 20% Democrats, 20% Republicans in the state of Georgia. That leaves 60% of people in Georgia unrepresented by ballot access laws that both of them support.
30
And he's right there, too.
seconds, Ms. Abrams.
Actually, to correct Mr. Hazel, I co-sponsored legislation to expand ballot access because I agree with you that third parties should have better access to the right to vote in the state of Georgia. I co-sponsored it with one of our independents in the state legislature. But let's be clear about ballot access and voter access. Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State, and he has assiduously denied access to the right to vote. We know that the right to vote is the only way that we can make the changes we need in the state, the only way we can make the changes we need in this country, whether it's access to the right to an abortion, the ability to take care of our families. We need a governor who believes in access to the right to vote and not in voter suppression, which is the hallmark of Brian Kemp's leadership.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that I'm pretty much going to end it here and then pick up the rest tomorrow, and maybe throughout the week I can finish this. But all in all, my point about voting, right? If everyone go out and vote, please. do whatever that it takes. It's not that hard, but the way that the narrative makes it seem is that you have to go through, a Faustian 8 rings of Hades or whatever to go and vote. If you need an ID, get your ID. If you need your voter's registration card, get that. Go out and vote. And I feel like Stacey Abrams and people of her ilk use that argument as a preemptive way to say why they lost, instead of saying it was a crappy campaign or I was a really shitty candidate. Because I think Hillary may have tried to do the same thing. So we're going to get back into this tomorrow. Thanks to all my new subscribers. Like, subscribe, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the debate so far, if you watched it. And let me know what you think of this libertarian guy, too, because he's actually pretty animated. He's pretty funny. And he gets pretty passionate about a few things. So, all right, you guys, stay safe, and I'm out of here.